the Ukrainian forces will also use this operational pause. And they're proving to be a lot more agile, a lot more committed, as you can imagine. They're defending their own territory. But it will take time. And I think Russia will be also using that time to really strengthen its grip in the Donbass.
We're told the Prime Minister spoke to the Ukraine President, Volodymyr Zelensky, saying that he believes Ukraine can retake the territory lost to Russia in the Donbass. What about that message from the Prime Minister? You imagine Zelensky knows what his forces are capable of doing and not doing. So is that a useful call from the Prime Minister?
I think it's a useful call in terms of time frame. The time frame is put, John. I know despite all the Prime Minister's domestic problems, frankly, he's been a very stalwart supporter of Ukraine against Russian aggression. I mean, the reality is, as we always probably anticipated, if Russia was prepared to double down, as it clearly was, with complete disregard for either civilian casualties or its own, it would probably be able to take Luhansk and Donetsk, and that continues to be, the assessment. But there's no doubt about it. There'll be an operational pause now. The Russians have taken a hell of a lot of battering, thank goodness. They'll be doing everything they can to legitimize their holdings in the Donbass. And in the meantime, of course, NATO will be strengthening its own defenses within NATO territories and doing what it can to give Ukraine the wherewithal, hopefully in due course, to reverse the Russian successes. But timeframes are important.
And it does seem we're in for a grinding war of attrition, doesn't it? We now see Putin has ordered his forces to carry on to try and take as much as possible of the rest of the Donbass region. And the Ukrainians are receiving more by way of weapons and munitions. And they do not lack determination. This could surely go on for a very considerable time.
I think it will, John. I think the capacity for the Russians to expand the war, even in Ukraine, a second front over Odessa, I think, or to do anything with NATO, the boundary with NATO forces is really limited at the moment. But they will continue to drive where they can in the Donbass. In the meantime, I think in terms of capability, training, equipping, the Ukrainian forces will also use this operational pause. And they're proving to be a lot more agile, a lot more committed, as you can imagine. They're defending their own territory. But it will take time. And I think Russia will be also using that time to really strengthen its grip in the Donbass in terms of energy, minerals, grain, reopening the Black Sea ports, etc., and bringing in Russian administrators, Russian legislators, Russian police, Russian administrators, Russian passports, etc., to continue driving the fiction that these places are part of Mother Russia.
And with that process now on the way, the idea of driving Russia entirely from the Donbass region, that does seem a very faint prospect, doesn't it?
I think it is a faint prospect, John. I think we're absolutely right to encourage the Ukrainians and to support them. I absolutely think that the Ukrainians will do what they can. I think, as I say, they've proved, thank goodness, to have thwarted Putin's maximalist intentions or intentions early on. But it is a grind, and I think issues of sanctions, issues of cost of living crisis, of grain, of famine in certain parts of the world because we can't get grain out, energy rises, and all the knock-on effects are going to be going on parallel to whatever's going on tactically and operationally on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah, and look, Britain and the Prime Minister are clearly keen to be seen in the forefront of support for Ukraine. And to be clear and fair, Britain is in the forefront of support for Ukraine. But I wonder, how far do you judge the Prime Minister's political difficulties at home are having, at least to a degree, the effect of helping Ukraine?
I think they make it very difficult, John. You know, there is a really, really important ideological, political point that the Prime Minister makes extremely well. But there's no doubt about it, his message is very much lost in the crackle of domestic upsets and allegations, etc., and all the things that you know and report on.
But at the sharp end, Simon, the weapons are going through, the support is coming through, and you could say that the Prime Minister may be keener to do that, given his problems at home, but not that Zelensky or Ukraine would care about that.
They wouldn't. I mean, I genuinely think the Prime Minister is really a very, there's real backbone to what he wants to do, and I think he is a historian. I think he does take a certain inspiration from the lessons of history. He does have the American backing, and I think, is increasingly has been a leader in the European Union or NATO and all these various multilateral organizations. But if his own domestic position is undermined or at risk, then that, of course, makes it difficult for him to take a leadership role with any credibility or confidence. And
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, at the moment, we're now told today the United Kingdom is sending more supplies to Ukraine, including 10 self-propelled artillery systems. Do you think that enough is being done? Could Britain, could America, could Europe and Western allies do much more to supply Ukraine more quickly and more heavily than they are now? I know the logistics of this are challenging, but could much more be done?
Yes, I think it could, to be honest with you, John. But I'm not naive about how other people's domestic politics also are playing through. America has its own issues. They will be the big player. People like the Poles, the Balts are very, very forward-leaning on this. Other members of NATO and the European are less hawkish on this. They are looking to how this plays out in the long term, and they have their own domestic agendas. But one of the problems the Ukrainians have definitely had is an inferiority in artillery. And again, you'll have had it reported by other commentators, I'm sure, that the capacity for the Russians, who have failed miserably in the maneuver battle, to use artillery just to sway the destruction ahead of them, leveling everything they can, has been to their advantage. The Ukrainians have been very good at counter-battery fire, but they actually need the equipment to be able to do that. And then they seem to be able to cue it extremely well. So long-range artillery will, I won't say swing the balance, will undoubtedly push things in the Ukrainians' favour in the context of the long haul.
All right, Lieutenant General Sir Simon Mayall, good as always to talk to you.